welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
And I'm super sick with vaccination symptoms. So, but I'm trying to figure out how to use words and link them together and create a story that way.
Exactly. So to help us get through this vaccination haze, we are issuing a challenge. Each week, you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in reading it, and then we talk about the story sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production. Exactly. So hey, we're back.
Welcome back.
We're back after a little 2-week hiatus. I'm really glad that this didn't accidentally turn into an indefinite hiatus, which is always a risk. Especially during these trying times. But yeah, we're back.
Yeah, we're back, and I know that we both used those 2 weeks pretty well. I know on my end, I used it to really focus on these finals, and thankfully I got a pretty good grade. You know, put forth the best work that I've definitely put forth in these classes. And then on top of that, I was actually able to sleep, get good hours. And sort of rejuvenate. So I am high and ready.
You're high?
No, but I am high ready.
Oh, I see.
You know, I am so ready that like my brain is buzzing.
That sounds like you're high.
But I'm high on excitement, and I am excited
you're high
for
on
the
E?
second arc. High on E for the second arc of Do the Right Thing.
The second arc, right? In my time, I got diagnosed finally. Did I tell you?
Oh, I don't think
I have attention deficit hyperactive disorder.
Okay. So I'm guessing you were able to first and foremost, knowing that is half of the battle. So congratulations,
finally confirmed
for knowing that. But and I'm guessing did they put you on any sort of plan, or like what's the roadmap?
Yeah, I'm on Concerta right now, so figuring out how that is going for me. It has been good. However, I was already feeling like really like dissociated / like spacey most of the time, and like this has made it, I think, worse. So I'm gonna have to figure something out to balance it. But it's fine. Regardless, like I'm just glad that like I finally have this diagnosis. I don't have to try to get it again, and then I can see what works. Maybe it's something that I don't take every day. Maybe I'll end up just taking it on days where I really need to like sit down and focus. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But I'm glad that there's finally an answer, because I've been searching for literally years. I'm really annoyed that I had to take like several tests for them to figure out, rather than just like looking at my report card history, because like every single year as a kid, there probably was written somewhere, Alex is really smart and bright, but can't keep track of their assignments, and is always forgetting to turn things in, and can't do time management, and talks too much in class. And it's like, come on, why did anyone recommend me? My God.
Yeah, those are like the 3 first steps. But if you don't mind me asking, how did you go about getting this diagnosis? Because I know I've always wondered how people do get these sort of proper diagnoses for their isms.
Basically, you just have to go see a psychiatrist that specializes in the thing, and
pay that money.
If you have insurance, it's usually covered. But yeah, if you don't have insurance, then yeah, that's probably real tough. But I'm sure there's some resources out there for people who don't. But so you go and you tell them what the thing is, and depending on what it is, there might be more rigorous testing. Depression anyway was a lot easier getting that diagnosis, because it's just like, talk about how
they can just look
awful
at
you feel. Yeah, you came in wearing really gross sweatpants, and looks like you haven't showered in 3 days. So
you just look gray for some reason. There's like a gray aura around you.
Yeah. So they just take a look at your vibes, and they just tell you how it looks.
So it's just a huge vibe check.
Yeah, it's basically going to the psychiatrist is just a vibe check.
can you please post that on Twitter? I really need you to post.
Okay,
that.
I'll think about it. Anyway, we're back here after a 2-week hiatus. As we are getting back into it, this is going to be slightly different. Just a little short episode as we'll just cover the stories that were sent in the meantime. But next week, we'll start reading listener-submitted stories rather than random stories from the turn of the century.
Yeah, which honestly that's going to be really fun because not only will we be able to read things that are a lot more relevant, things that weren't written in like a totally different version of English, but also we will be able to give certain stories a lot more shine than they would normally get when they're only subjugated to the listener submitted story section. So overall, it'll be really great, and I think this will definitely keep the podcaster community interaction popping.
That's right. So just to say now as we go forward, for weeks going forward, unless if we end up changing it again, when you write your story, we'll just assume that by submitting your story that you want it to be up for selection for reading on the podcast. There's no guarantee. We can only read one story per week online or on the recording. Otherwise, it would just take up too much time. But we'll also take efforts to make sure that we don't, repeat the same people too many times and that everyone gets a fair shot, right? So long as if you keep sending in your story, yours will get read eventually, like absolutely. So yeah, if you don't want your story to be read, still do submit it. Just put somewhere at the top, maybe in bold, say that you don't want it to be read, for whatever reason. It really does not matter. We can still talk about your story without reading it out loud if you would like. So, yeah, and hopefully y'all can have that as your own little motivation to write a little bit more. Just the fact that it will be featured so centrally on the podcast.
Definitely. Well, all right, cool. I guess it is time to roll on into the podcast proper and start talking about these fantastic stories.
Sure. Let's start at the first week, the week before the hiatus. So for episode 106, Journey with
Journey,
Threshold, Remedy, Secure, and Productive.
These stories this week definitely took the topic of journey and just really gave us these fantastic stories. So the first one we will be talking about this week is by Asgard Ziggle with Destination.
That's right. And real quick, relating to Journey, we just did a game club on the game Journey. So I just thought that was relevant. So if you want to go see Elliot and Ruben analyze that wonderful desert traveling game, it's on our YouTube channel. So check it out. But okay, Asgard Zygel story. So this is an interesting sort of like, I don't know, an examination or a reflection on the whole trope of just the character that journeys, right? This traveler arrives at the end of all roads, just a place. I was picturing just like in the middle of like a road in like a desert, basically, all dust and red and such. But there's just a thin red line crossing the road. And this threshold speaks to the traveler and just says, halt, you cannot pass. This is the end of your path. This random spot on the road is the end of all roads, and there's nothing beyond it at all. And so the traveler is just, wants to just keep going on, and the threshold, reflects on his life and talks about how he can't even remember why he set on the journey. Originally, it was to go and get the remedy for a sick loved one, but after he went on that big old quest and did the whole big adventure, when he got home, he just left the remedy there and then continued on journeying because he didn't want to end. And now he's totally forgotten why he was traveling. But the threshold tells him that this is the end. There's nothing more. And so the traveler sits down and sort of, as a consolation for all this, or this just random ending being the ending, becomes the ending, and the traveler just sits down and tells the threshold a bunch of stories about their journeys. And I think the implication is, by the morning, the traveler passes away.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like how this story has this sort of mystical tone to it, while also kind of using the ambiguity of this main character and how they are sort of losing the reasons as to why they are journeying. And I think that is a really great setup to like this really good dialogue, and beyond that, I think the story does at the same time show the grandeur of taking a huge journey, but also this sort of hollow feeling in always having to go somewhere, and how this main character never really seemed to have been comfortable in any one place. I know the piece talks about how this main character sort of started to love the changing of their selves as they go from place to place, and as they go from fight to fight and battle to battle, and how they are making friends and they are making enemies, how by them living this sort of huge life, they are almost fulfilled yet hollow, right? So yeah, I think that this story is really talking about a lot, but it never really tells you how to feel about it. It just gives you all of these different tones and moods, and just sort of lets you create your own thoughts on this traveler. So I mean, overall, really, really great job, and I really loved reading this.
Yeah, I really like the mythical tone of the whole thing.
Definitely. Well, all right. Up next, and our final story for this week is by Nipotin with Chapter 7.
So Nipotin has this another one of these poetic vignettes. This one with this warrior woman after some sort of battle and defending the people she was employed by. She's wounded. The nearest village is too far away, and so she's kind of just taking in this sort of moment. Rustling of the leaves over the stamped foundation, wet like rain, and finally, before having this reflection on nature that I think symbolizes her passing. And I'll just read it just because it's a couple of sentences, but the threshold, the edge of a rock pond rippling, a life of dewdrops from the belayed grass, the tree there petals and leaves fall slowly. She looks up and closes her eyes, and spring blooms, and then comes summer, and autumn, and winter, and then spring again. And so, yeah, finally passing on, and I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I really do like the construction of these sentences. I mean, they really do lend themselves to being evocative of a lot of emotion. And then I also like how the passage of time is being portrayed here. This warrior looking over their past battles, while also looking at how the weather has changed, how the spring and summer comes and it goes. So yeah, I just really like what the story is trying to invoke. And yeah, I just really think that last paragraph is really well constructed when it comes to trying to focus on the little things, but also the larger things, like, you know, the blades of grass, but also the seasons. So I mean, overall, it is a really nice read. And yeah, I just really liked reading it. And I will almost say that I think that the middle section could have lended itself to maybe having a fifth paragraph in there, just so that the whole piece is sort of tied in to that last really strong paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now it's time to move on into our first week of hiatus, and the words for that week were watch, houseplant, revival, and shortage.
That's right.
And the first story for this week is by Nick Yu with The Gardener.
As the title suggests, this is about a gardener. This is about a gardener, and he's working on this garden full of weeds, and it's like hard work to pull all these out. His hands are they aren't blistering anymore, but they still do sting. And he's like grateful for this particular job. His like lady that he serves is merciful for the most part. But even still, it's still very, very hard work. And so we kind of reflect on this sort of like indulgent society where all these servants have to work far too hard on these things. One thing I found like a little ironic is how there's sort of a conception in this culture that men are too brutish to properly take care of things like plants. But this is clearly like a really tough job too. But he sees this one boy who is like running along trying to get to the place where he needs to be without being late, and sort of reflecting on like that being a really uncomfortable position to be in, but it's also like kind of like amusing, and reflecting on this sort of the hard life where like he's grateful that he's in this position, but it's not really necessarily like the best place for him to be either.
I really do like how this story stays in the gardener's head, to where we are really able to understand how they are viewing the lady that gave them this job, and sort of the work that the job itself takes, and how it seems to take a lot more work than one might think. And I really do like the moments when they reflect on their old life in light of this new life that is supposed to be more leisurely, but at the same time he is still putting in the same amount of work. So I mean, overall, I think that this story is just really strong when it comes to letting us understand this main character's headspace. And we also get a nice picture when he is looking at the young kid on like how he views not only his own youth, but also how he sort of views the current state of things. So overall, I think it's a really well written piece, and I enjoyed reading it through and through.
Yeah, I think I would also. I don't necessarily think that the story needs another person to talk to, as Nick Dew reflects on this piece. But I feel like there could have been an opportunity. I think it would have been interesting to have this gardener talk to the boy, someone who's like, in just a different position as him, more born into this role, but maybe not, and also maybe not as like grateful as he is to be here, or maybe vice versa. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right. Up next is by Nipotin with Chapter 9.
Yeah, I don't know where Chapter 8 is, but...
Yeah, because we just read 7.
But again, another one of these sort of vignettes. This one is a bit more narrative-y than Nipotin's usually like very poetic and very fleeting images. And so here... this woman has just got this house plant, or she got it like a month ago, and she, as we understand reading the story, that she's obviously like very, very depressed. She has stays in bed most of the days. Her phone rings, or used to ring, but probably doesn't now. Her door used to be knocked on, but doesn't really now. Dust is settling down. There's only thin lines of light through the window, and she's clearly like not eating enough, as her ribs are like showing underneath her pajamas, and she ignores how much she has to eat and stuff. But she remembers the plant. She remembers that she has to take care of this plant. So she gets up to water it, and while she goes and gets the water, she grabs something to eat, if it wasn't for her having to get up for this plant, she probably wouldn't really drink much water and wouldn't eat very much. And so this taking care of this thing provides her a reason to take care of herself. And we have this final moment sort of, even though she's still barely surviving, this is not something that's just going to turn everything around, but it would be worse without it. But at the end, we have this moment of positivity as she opens up the blinds to let some more light in.
Yeah, definitely. So I think this story really does portray this depression and this isolation very well. And I do like how by her nurturing this houseplant, she is also nurturing herself, you know. And I really do like how this houseplant is sort of shaking up that thick depression that she seems to be set in. So overall, I think that this is definitely very, very well written. It is very evocative of the emotion. We completely get a strong feeling as to how this depression has affected her. But at the end, we do get a strong sense of hope that by taking care of this plant, making sure that this plant gets better, the hope is that she can also get better alongside this plant. So I mean, overall, a very strong piece, a very tight piece, and I just really liked reading it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. Up next for this week is by January Juniper with an untitled story.
Yeah, thanks for coming and joining us, January Junipers.
Yeah,
I appreciate your submission very, very much. And so this is a I was about to say cute story. The beginning starts off cute and it does not end so cute. So this is from the perspective of a houseplant, and which is very like nice and pleasant and wholesome. Feeling having the sun fall on its leaves and feeling so good about those, and seeing the rest of the house, these housemates. And it's like this amusing thing where the plant basically views itself as much of a housemate as the humans in the building do, even though they don't really, I mean, they just see the houseplant as a plant. But these two housemates are, you know, like dancing together. They kiss each other and they're clearly like very in love. And it goes on. They're like doing a little bit less dancing, but they're still together very often. They watch TV a lot, and they seem relatively happy, but maybe not as excited or enthusiastic as they used to be. And they're starting to forget to water the plant a little bit. And then it goes on further. The sun comes out less. The housemates are going out less. One of them keeps like leaving. One of the housemates brought the plant into her room, and now the houseplant barely sees the other one, and just barely sees into the kitchen. And she now, like, the plant like barely gets to drink at all. The housemates are like yelling at each other, and you can kind of tell that the plant is like thinking less, and feeling more tired, missing sunshine. And then we see how one of the housemates is just like crying, and this really, you know, sad moment. She sees them crying, and the houseplant has some sunshine hit them and remembers when they used to dance, and their favorite leaf falls off, and it's all very, very tragic. And then just there's this final like awful, you know, moment. The houseplant can't really think much anymore because it's so messy and cold and dry. The leaves are dry and crunchy. Everything feels shriveled. The stems ache in fragility, and the sun means very little to them anymore. And they now know that they're doomed to sit here until the last drop leaves their roots. And they hope that whenever that happens, whenever they pass, that they're not alone, which is all very, very sad.
Very, very. But I do think that the usage of the point of view of the houseplant really does let us view the crumbling relationships within this house and people in a sort of distant light that lets this story have a certain sense of levity for most of it. But I also like how the houseplant itself is being affected by the moods of this house. And yeah, I mean, overall, it starts off very cute and light, as you said, but over time it just gets sadder and more dreary. And we see how this houseplant is slowly dying as it seems that the people within the house are within their emotions. So I think that that using this point of view is really smart when it comes to portraying these emotions. But beyond that, I think that it is just really strong in how it ends and how this houseplant is almost taking on these same feelings that these roommates probably have. This sort of isolation that seems to be happening. I mean, them going from dancing in the living room to crying in their bedroom, you know? So, I mean, overall, this is a very strong and very conscious story. This story definitely knows what it's trying to do, which I appreciate. So, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed reading this story. And, I mean, at the very end, I was feeling very sorry for this houseplant. I just wanted to, you know, give it a hug and spritz it with some water.
It was very, very, very sad way for a plant to pass on like that. And it makes me feel very bad for my plants, but...
yeah, but I mean, overall, fantastic job, and thank you for writing in this week. Well, all right, on to our most recent week, and the words for this week were storage, compliance, hut, and chest. And the first story we will be reading this week is by Matt Said Words with an untitled story.
That's right. So this is an interesting story. It goes on for a bit, and also there was a fun little quirk, I guess, where there was one of those random Reddit bots. This one was a pirate speak bot, and so it turned Matt Said Words' story entirely into pirate speak.
But it didn't do all of it for some reason.
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what it was here for, really, but...
Yeah, because it seemed like it just added the word grog in a lot of places, and then, like, put apostrophes after every T. I don't know. It was funny, though.
Yeah, it was amusing. I didn't delete it. I could ban it from the server, or from the subreddit, but I didn't feel enough about it, but... Anyway, but this is an interesting story. It feels so much longer than it actually is, because it didn't have to get broken into multiple comments.
3 parts?
But it was into 3 parts, and they really, they felt really long. And it's broken into these 3 perspectives. So first, James has this little garden, and he had put together this siphon from the stream to fill up this holding pond, which would hold the water to water everything. And his plants aren't doing well, and he wonders why. So he goes up and sees that the holding pond is empty, and so is the stream. And so he follows the stream all the way up, finding a tree that has fallen across it and blocked it. A really, really, really big tree. And that's when James realizes that what has gone wrong, that someone has actually intentionally cut down this tree, as in intentionally blocked the stream for some reason. So he runs all the way back, and while he was there, he scared off a fox, because foxes are always causing problems in the area. And then we switch to the fox's perspective, who and we reflect a little bit on the fox's life, that 2 of her pups were killed by James's traps, which is just super sad. And so we start to not like James a little bit more. But she runs all the way back to his little farm garden area, and sees another person there. And so we sort of understand, oh, it must be the person that cut down the tree. I wonder what they're up to. And this person seems fairly nice, and says, "Hey there, I won't hurt you," and such. And while the fox was there, she went into the holding pond and started digging up the ground a little bit. And finally, we cut to the final perspective with Laura. She has a shovel, and she starts digging right where the fox is digging for something that was there. Something that smells very strongly, that the fox likes, but Laura does not. And the fox sort of joins her in helping, which is a fun little... them pairing up together. And she finally digs up whatever that thing was, which appears to be a human hand. That James apparently has murdered someone, probably his wife, and buried her under this pond. Laura pulls off the ring off of the dead hand. The fox is probably wanting to eat the hand before the fox finally runs away just before James appears and hits Laura with the same shovel that she was using. And so we understand that this is a pretty bad situation that Laura has gotten herself into.
Oh, very much so. I think the usage of 3 different perspectives is really nice within this story, especially after the first section where we have a lot of questions as to who cut down the tree. What is that smell? And within the later sections, we are slowly edging closer to that answer. So I think that this story is really good when it comes to attention. You know, it grips us in the beginning with this fairly typical scene of a person out in the woods, sort of tending to their stream. But then as it keeps going, it becomes more and more sinister, which I really did like. And I think overall, of course, the story is very well written. I think it seems that it's the beginning of something much larger. And yeah, I just really like a lot of this imagery, how the stream is being described, how this sort of stench coming from this dirt is so pungent that, you know, you can almost smell it. So yeah, overall, this is a really, really strong story. And yeah, even though it might seem longer, it is true that it doesn't really read that long. It seems like a very short story when you do end up reading it. So overall, fantastic job, and I really, really liked this murder mystery story that you put forth.
Yeah, I found the different perspectives is very dynamic.
Very much, very much. Well, all right. Those are all of our stories for this episode, but we would like to say a big old do the right thing thank you to everyone who did submit their stories. So, thank you very much to Asgar Ziggle.
Thank you to Nipiton.
Thank you, Nick's You.
Thank you, January Junipers.
And thank you very much to Matt Said Words. Thank you so much for submitting your story.
Yeah, we really appreciate y'all sending in your stories, even though we were on hiatus and you weren't going to hear from us for a bit. So we appreciate your patience. But yeah, now we're back. And next week, again, we'll be starting to do the read one submitted story actually on the podcast. I'm really excited about that because your stories are always so creative and deep and entertaining to read, and I'm really excited to just talk about the fun stuff that y'all do on the podcast.
100%. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by submitting your story to Reddit at /r/DoTheRightThing. All you have to do is sit down for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 of 4 words from that week.
That's right. And the best place to find out the words as soon as they come out would be on the subreddit and on Twitter, which our Twitter is at RightThingCast. You can also send us an email with whatever you want to say at rightthingcast@gmail.com.
Exactly. And if you want to support us and everyone else in this fantastic Doof Media, you can do that by donating to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to get access to exclusive bonus content, including the latest episode of Doof Over.
That's right. We should get on that, of actually doing that. It's more of ours is mostly a bi-monthly thing, but there's a lot of other wonderful bonus content shows. There is The High Ground, which there is now at least one episode for free. If you want to go listen to that. I forget exactly where you can see it, but if you're on the Discord, which is free to join, you could probably ask about that in probably Doof General, I think. I forget where it is, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. That episode of The High Ground that's out for free, I think it's on episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and it's really funny listening to them talk about it and how ridiculous some parts of Star Wars are. And of course, there's Freeman Bros, and there's also other levels of the tower if you're into Stephen King stuff. So yeah, a lot of wonderful stuff that we do here at Doof Media. And like I mentioned earlier on the episode, we're also doing so much else all the time. Right now, the Game Club on Journey just came out yesterday, and that was a lot of fun to tune into. And if you want to hear, Ellie and Ruben talk about that wonderfully deep game, you can go do that. And next month, finally, we'll be covering Disco Elysium. They took the extra month because it's a very long game. I'm super excited about that episode, and I think I should be able to go and say a couple things on it.
Nice.
Hopefully, if things work out.
Nice, that is fantastic. Well, all right, it's time to roll on into next week's words. Can I get a drum roll, please?
Ba 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 ba. New words.
Ba da ba ba ba.
Yeah.
So, next week's words are direct, driver, obscure, and fisherman.
That's right. So direct, we got a couple meanings here. So direct as in someone who's being very, forward and like in a single direction, right? Or specifically, you can have that connotation of going from one place to another. So it can be in a verbal sense or in a, I suppose, geographic sense, in a momentum sense. You can also be a director who directs people, shows people where they should be and where they should go. So you got a couple of definitions right there. A driver, which is someone who drives. Also,
pile driver.
Pile driver, which I don't really know what that is, except it's like a piston-y
wrestling
sort
move.
Okay. You could also download display drivers for your graphics card. I think that's how that works.
Google Drive.
Yeah, Google Driver. You could do that. You got a lot of options here. Obscure, so that can be either a adjective or a verb. So as an adjective, that is something that is not well known or hard to see. And to obscure something is to make it hard to see. So you could talk about obscure music, or how the leaves obscured your vision and you didn't see the guy who took your stuff. Yeah. A fisherman. So that could be someone who fishes. I think the implication is that they're probably gendered male, but you can do whatever you want. Or they could be a fish person. Could be
a fisherman.
Exactly. Or it could be like a company man for the Fisher Company. I think it's
okay.
That's a company, right? That's like a teddy bear company.
A fish company?
No, Fisher.
I mean,
it's like a toy company, right?
Oh, you're talking about Fisher Price?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the one.
A fisherman. Oh, yes. I only buy Fisher Price toys for my child. I'm kind of a fisherman.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So Jarvis, what's the story that you're gonna write?
Thank you so much for asking. The story I am going to be writing next week is about a deep Earth expedition where they made the very first drill made entirely of diamonds. So of course it can pierce through all of that hard bedrock. And as this drill is driving down into the core, the head of this expedition is directing all of his other constituents to take samples of the rocks that they pass by as they're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And this goes all the way until the smoke from the deep mantle of the earth starts to obscure their vision so much that they actually start driving up. Up. This drill keeps going up until it pokes a tiny little pee hole in the bottom of a very wide lake, sending torrents of water down on top of all of these miners and deep into the mantle to create even more bedrock. So of course the head of this expedition goes under fire because since they did poke a hole in a very wide lake, about 3 fishermen were killed in the process.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry too.
Well, the story that I'll be writing is, so you know how there's like people do races with like cars, like race cars. So you know how like everyone has like a favorite race person, like race car driver. The favorite driver.
Dale Earnhardt.
They have like a favorite driver. So I'm not a fan of any of those big drivers where everyone knows about them. I'm only a fan of some of the more obscure drivers, right? My favorite obscure driver is one of the most obscure drivers. So he's this guy. He actually lives directly along this one lake in the Gobi Desert, and he's actually he's a fisherman there. And he so he like fishes, and then he gets in his car, and he's a driver, and he drives back to his house, and then and that's how he drives, and no one knows about him except for me. So you wouldn't have heard about him. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh, true. I'm sorry. I guess I'm not like into driving.
You're not into this. You're not. Yeah, you're not into driving like I am. So
yeah,
it's pretty understandable.
I guess I'm kind of like a noob to it. I don't know what the right driver to follow is.
Yeah, you don't know how to drive the right thing.
Yeah, how to do the right thing to drive the right thing.
We're back, baby.
As clunky as ever, baby.